Hello, my friends. I'd like to provide a health update for you. I was in, as you know, an automobile accident on October the 11th. Was in the hospital from October the 12th through October the 31st. And now I've been in recovery mode, getting checkups, follow-up medical checkups, tests done, as well as physical rehabilitation since then. I broke my neck, all vertebrates in my neck, C1 through C7 have been fused. My hand was completely mangled. They had to rebuild the hand, fillet it open and rebuild the entire hand. Now I'm trying to just get the fingers to move again. And the head suffered trauma, very, very severe concussions. The whole head is still, to this day, numb. And so, if you call me a numb head, well, there you go. It's true. You touch my head and it's numb, especially the top and down to the back. And I am alive today to repeat a phrase I have heard many, many times in my recovery, is a miracle. It's a miracle, a series of miracles. My first update, I talked to you about angels because it had been suggested that my guardian angel was there looking after me and saved me that day as I was on the side of that hill after tumbling over in the car many, many times. And I talked to you the last time in December about the gifts, Christmas gifts, but you are my gifts. The gifts of you to me are the gifts that have kept me going through all this recovery. And then today, I'm going to use as my core, my foundation in my update, miracles. Because as I said, that's the phrase I've heard more than any other. It's a miracle you're alive. I heard it right after the accident. I heard it once I was in the hospital in ICU for most of 3 weeks, and with tubes, breathing and feeding tubes down my throat. And at one point, after a couple of weeks, they took them out. And then an hour later, I coded. They had to shove them back in really quickly. And the doctors and nurses who saw me code and then saw me afterwards alive were shocked. And they said, it's a miracle that you're alive. And I think that's true. I think that it is a miracle. And as a person of faith, I believe in miracles. I believe that God works miracles in our lives every single day. It's just whether or not we're paying attention enough to realize it. Now, I want to tell you that there are many things that happened to me in that accident that I didn't even know about. For example, I broke lumbar vertebrae, lower back also, L4 and 5. I broke a couple ribs. Apparently those weren't bad enough to take my life, so I didn't even learn about them until recently. The issues that I still have and I'm working on, I can't raise my right arm very high. I'm trying to show you I can raise it about that high. They thought maybe it was a damaged shoulder in the accident. And I had an MRI just 2 days ago, and it revealed that the shoulder is perfect. There's no problems. So the problem is apparently nerve related. Maybe nerves got pinched or somehow hurt during the operation of my neck. And so anyway, we have to work on that somehow. We have to figure out through physical therapy or other things how to get my right arm to work again. The vessels in my neck, which I've shared with you, are a problem. Two of them, main arteries and vessels in my neck, were severely damaged in the accident. And it's sort of a catch-22 for me because the way I know that it's a real problem is if I have a stroke. And yet, the only way to go in and really look at them and possibly repair them is to do an angiogram, which back in 2015 and 2016, angiograms caused me strokes. It released some plaque that got up into my brain and gave me strokes. So I have to sit around and wait for a possible stroke or do an angiogram that may cause a stroke. So that's not good news. The only good news is that arteries can repair themselves. And so I think at this point, the goal is to try to wait and see if those arteries, veins repair themselves. The way I can help in the repair is by keeping my blood pressure down, keeping it lower. By keeping it low, it puts less stress on the arteries, and it gives them an opportunity to repair themselves. So the things that I have ahead of me physically to look after, to care for as I continue in my healing process are the arteries, the neck therapy, the hand therapy. All are going well. It's a long time. And I believe that I am where I am today as a result of the many miracles that have happened. This hand, for example, was completely destroyed. My family was told when they took me in to operate on the October 12th or 13th that they'd likely take off the whole hand. It was that bad. But the doctor rebuilt it. And slowly but surely it's coming back. And if I were to show you the photos of the transition of what the hand looks like today versus at the beginning, you'd say to yourself, my gosh, that's a miracle. So today, I want to say thank you for all the many miracles that happened in my life. Of course, thank God, but also thank you. You might remember the story from the scriptures of Jesus feeding the 5,000. And, let me let my friend, Doubting Thomas, who was there, tell you the story.
And then it was very late, and it was time for the peoples to eat. They were very hungry, and so a few of us went to Jesus and said, you must tell these people to go home now. They must go home, they must eat. And Jesus said to us, why don't we feed them? And we said to Jesus, we can't feed them. We don't have enough food. And if we were to buy the food, the cost of the food would be 700 or 800 days' wages. We don't have the money, we don't have the food. And Jesus asked, he said, well, how much food do we have? So we went, we looked, we came back, we said, Jesus, we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. Jesus said, fine, that's fine. Would you bring it to me? So we brought it to him in a basket. We watched as he blessed it, he broke it. And then he asked us to pass the baskets up and down through the peoples. And do you know we did that? And do you know that when we had finished, we picked up the scraps, and that the scraps filled 12 baskets filled? Did you know that? We started with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes, and when he had finished, there were 12 baskets full from the scraps. That's a miracle, yes? Don't tell me Jesus is not Messiah. Do you know how many people we fed that day? No, am I talking to mutes? You say this, what is this? 5,000, that's what your book says, yes? 5,000. It says something else. Not counting women and children. Let me tell you something. There were always 4 or 5 times as many women and children as there were men. Jesus fed 20,000 that day with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. Jesus is Messiah, yes, chosen and anointed by God.
Well, there you have me as Doubting Thomas from a few years ago. And by the way, I am looking forward to full recovery so I can get back to doing Doubting Thomas and all my other characters and talks again, hopefully soon. The Pope and the Vatican have named this year the year of St. Joseph. And I would love, before this year is out, to be feeling good enough, maybe after Easter, maybe getting into the spring and the fall and the winter, do many performances and talks on St. Joseph for this year of St. Joseph. Talk about Joseph, the man, the father, the saint. There's a lot I believe we can learn from St. Joseph. But I want to point out something in the story of the feeding of the 5,000. As a person of faith, I believe in miracles. I believe that God creates miracles. He's created many miracles from the beginning of time. The creation of the world was a miracle. The creation of us, each of us, as independent and individual as we are, we're all miracles. But I think that even though God creates the miracles, I think we, each of us, using our gifts, our talents, play a role in those miracles. For example, the story of the feeding of the 5,000. Many theologians say, as Thomas did, that there were likely 20,000 that were there. So I believe, as a person of faith, that God could blink his eye or wave his hand or speak a miracle into being, and poof, the miracle happens. But I think that in this particular case, it's possible, just go with me here, it's just very possible that the miracle, although God's miracle, may have been helped along by people. Maybe many of those 20,000 that were sitting there listening to Jesus were moved by his words, moved by the things he said. So when they passed those baskets up and down the aisles with the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish, maybe some of the people who had food of their own put some of their food into the basket, helping others. You see, miracles come from God, but sometimes God uses us to help those miracles along. I believe that my miracles, the many that I've had, were God's miracles, but they were helped along by the doctors, the nurses, the orderlies. You, by your encouragement, the letters you've written, the cards you've written, the emails, the WhatsApps, the way you've contacted me, the wonderful things you've sent my way, those were encouragements. That's all part of the miracle of recovery that I've been experiencing. So it's God's miracle, but you played a role in it, and I'm grateful and I thank you. I remember putting Haley to bed when she was small and hearing a story of a family putting their daughter to bed, and she got scared there in the dark room and was calling out, "Mom, Dad, I'm scared." And parents come back into the room and they say, "What's wrong, sweetie?" And she said, I'm just scared. I think that there's somebody here. I think that there's something under my bed. And the parents looked under the bed and they said, "Honey, there's no one there." I said, "You shouldn't be scared. You should remember that God is always with you." And the little girl looked up and said, "Well, sometimes I like God with skin on him." You, in helping God's miracle, by helping me in my recovery, helping me get better, you are God with skin on. And that's what we're all called to be for each other. So I pray that as we continue to move forward, that you will continue to be there for me. Your prayers, your thoughts are important. I love hearing from you. I'm going to ask for 3 things. One is that your prayers continue. I sure do appreciate them. I need them, and I believe that they play a huge role in the miracles that I've experienced. Number 2, I'm going to ask that because I've got many, many more months of recovery that I have to be in San Diego, and yet I want to go back to my home also in Mexico. So I'm hoping that I can find a place to rent, a house to rent here in San Diego, which will put me close to my doctors and my rehab. So prayer for my health, if you can, my recovery. If you could also pray that I find a place to rent, a house to rent here in San Diego. Now that might be the biggest miracle of all, because it has to be cheap. And in San Diego, to find a house to rent for cheap, it'd be easier to part the Red Sea or bring somebody back from the dead. But it's a miracle nonetheless. So that is the second. Pray for my health, my well-being, if you would please. Pray that I can find a home to rent here in the San Diego area. And number 3, pray that I get well enough to where maybe by the end of Easter, maybe going into spring and summer, I'll be able to start doing my performance again, my talks again, because I really would love to do many performances and talks on St. Joseph during this year of St. Joseph. And if you are part of a church or a part of a group or an organization and you want to have faith that I'm going to be good enough by then, which I'm going to promise you I will work my tail off to be good enough, I'd love to hear from you and get invites to do talks or performances on Joseph. So lastly, please continue to be, not just for me, but for everybody, that God with skin on. Be the miracles. Just be you. Use the gifts, the talents that you have, God has given you, to be there for other people as you have for me. I've experienced many miracles from God because of you. May God continue to bless all of you. Thank you for sitting through this health update. This is Mark Price. Thanks for listening.